I was the clan's once-in-a-century prodigy necromancer. But on the day of the leadership trials, I willingly chose to give up. And in front of everyone, I destroyed every puppet I had meticulously crafted. Because in my last life, I turned my dearest friend into the most powerful puppet in the world. I dominated the leadership trials, crushing all opposition. But when I faced my senior, Ethan, my puppet turned and attacked me. Ethan accused me of stealing his puppet and of committing the clan's greatest taboo, using a living person to create it. The clan members sentenced me to death by 1,000 cuts. They tortured me to death and tossed my body into the boneyard. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn, back on the day of the leadership trials. Without a moment's hesitation, I killed all my puppets and immediately surrendered. Ethan panicked. He asked me why I was giving up. I just smiled. They were right, I said. A girl's place is getting married and having kids. Necromancy is a man's world. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing there, stunned and frozen. Ava, the clan leader, already made an exception to let you compete in the trials. You have to do your best. Don't disappoint me. When I opened my eyes, my master was patting my shoulder with a wide smile. Looking at his supposedly loving face, I felt a wave of nausea. Our entire clan made its living through necromancy. Our skills were so advanced that a century ago, we became the most prominent necromancer family. The necromancer community looked to our family for leadership, and our clan leader was the leader of them all. But since ancient times, the art was passed down from man to man, never to women. Because of this, women in the clan had a lowly status. From a young age, I had an extraordinary gift for it, and dreamed of becoming the world's greatest necromancer. But simply because I was a girl, no one would take me as an apprentice. Everyone cursed me, saying I was unnatural. Only my master, seeing my talent, broke the rules and took me in. He said it didn't matter if you were a man or a woman. Anyone who wanted to could become a necromancer. He said he would train me to be the first female one. And I didn't let him down. My puppets were sentient. They understood music, they were powerful attackers, and their quality was second to none. Because of this, my reputation grew and grew. For this year's leadership trials, the clan leader made an exception and allowed me to participate. In my previous life, after I heard the news, I went back and turned the body of my good friend Luna into a puppet. Anything in the world can be made into a puppet, but the most effective by far are living people. Second to that are corpses, and after that, skeletons. But the ancestors left a rule. Using living people as puppets is forbidden. Violators will be hacked to pieces. Even with corpses, you must get their consent before death, and sign a blood pact with them while they are still alive. Therefore, most necromancers use the skeletons of animals to create their puppets. Luna was my best friend. Her father beat her to death. That day, she dragged herself to my home with her last breath and insisted on signing a blood pact with me. She said she wanted to change the world with me. After turning Luna into a puppet, we were inseparable. I even slept with her, nurturing her every day with my own heart's blood. However, on the day of the leadership trials, Luna, who was on the stage, suddenly betrayed me. She turned and ran to Ethan, who stood on the opposite side, and acknowledged him as her master. My senior apprentice pointed at me. Ava, I told you before, puppets choose their own masters. It's useless even if you steal mine. He stood on the stage and told everyone that the reason my puppets were so powerful was because I used living people. As soon as he said it, the entire crowd erupted. A tidal wave of accusations crashed down on me. No wonder the ancestors forbid women from touching the secret arts of necromancy. Women can be so horrifyingly vicious. And she has the nerve to say she's no worse than a man. Turns out her genius was just a result of cheating. TSK, this woman has brought shame to the whole Liu family. This person was flinging mud at me like a madman. But I had no way to defend myself. Finally, I could only turn my gaze to my master. When I was making the puppets, my master was always by my side. He could surely prove my innocence. But to my shock, my master slowly walked over to stand beside Ethan. He let out a long sigh. Ave, I told you long ago. That cutting corners would eventually be exposed. Now even I can't protect you. Because of that single sentence, the furious clan members swarmed me like wild beasts. According to clan rules, they each took a knife to every piece of my flesh. My blood splattered across the ground. Ethan was the last to approach. He plunged a knife into my heart. As I was dying, I vaguely heard him say, Ava, thank you. Without you, how could I have ever become the clan leader? In that instant, it all clicked. Ethan was my master's illegitimate son. My master took me in as his apprentice, only to use me to clear the obstacles in Ethan's path. But I still couldn't understand. Luna and I were bound by a blood pact. How could she possibly recognize Ethan as her master? Ava, how about I help you craft the puppet of Luna? My master's words pulled me back from the painful memories. I couldn't help but shiver. No thank you, master. I want to try it on my own this time. I forced myself to stay calm and refused his offer. After returning home, I went straight to the underground ice cellar. Looking at the girl sleeping on the ice bed, beautiful as jade, she lay there so quietly, as if she were just asleep. In my past life, my master was unusually invested in my creation of Luna's puppet. He not only stood guard outside the door to prevent anyone from disturbing me, but also kept sending various precious materials. I was once naive enough to believe this was his favoritism. Only now did I realize his attentiveness was just so he could tamper with my work. To prevent the tragedy from happening again, I decided to completely avoid my master's interference. I carried Luna on my back and quietly left home. I circled around several hidden spots on the back mountain, even switching mountains a few times, before finally carrying her back home again. As they say, the most dangerous place is the safest place. I decided to complete the entire process right here at home. My master would never guess that my secluded place was my own house. After making sure no one was following me, I dug out a hidden ancient book from the family's collection and found an old crafting method. The reason I chose this method was because I was afraid that the techniques my master taught me contained hidden traps that would cause Luna to betray me again. According to the book, no matter which method was used to craft a puppet, it needed to be fed with heart's blood daily to truly establish a master-servant relationship. I locked myself and Luna in the secret room, not leaving for a moment. I was so vigilant that even when I slept at night, I tied myself to her. After 2 weeks of this, the puppet was finally complete. I gave a few commands, and when Luna did exactly as I said, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I originally wanted to take Luna out and walk her around the square a few times to show everyone her perfection. But thinking about it, I suddenly realized something much more important. 2 hours later, I gathered the entire clan in the square. Seeing the puppets neatly lined up behind me, everyone was stunned. Someone curiously asked, Ava, what are you doing, hosting a puppet fashion show? I met their gazes, my back straight as a board, my voice cold. My friends, I, Ava, have asked you all here today to bear witness. I am going to destroy all of my puppets, right here, in front of everyone. The moment I said it, an uproar ensued. For a necromancer, a puppet is a companion for life and death. After spending enough time with them, they can become even closer than one's own flesh and blood. Although there was no clan rule against destroying puppets, such an act was undoubtedly repulsive. However, I had no other choice. In my previous life, I believed my master's deceptive words. To enhance Luna's combat skills, I had her fight against my other puppets. As a result, her immense power destroyed all of them in an instant. Once a puppet dies, its secrets are laid bare. In my last life, my puppets were either made of bundled straw or stitched together from the bones of beasts and cotton. Every time Luna destroyed one, I would just toss the remains into the trash. As a result, when Ethan accused me of using living people to make my puppets, I didn't even have the evidence to prove my own innocence. This time, I couldn't be so passive. If Ethan and his father wanted to frame me, they would find a way to use my puppets. So this time, I decided to strike first, destroying these puppets in front of everyone. To prove my innocence, quiet curses rippled through the square. Some called me heartless and cruel, while others offered to buy my puppets. After all, the puppets I made were already famous. But I remained unmoved. Amidst a chorus of doubt, I tearfully beheaded the puppets one by one. Straw, cotton, and bones scattered across the ground. The pile of broken junk quickly lost everyone's interest. When the last puppet had turned to dust, I looked up and saw my master and Ethan, their faces pale, their expressions a mixture of shock and fear. After cleaning up the square, I started walking home. But after just a few steps, I caught a glimpse of Ethan talking in a low voice with another necromancer from the clan. I quietly crept closer and heard the man ask, "Your junior's puppets are so powerful." Yet she didn't even bat an eye while destroying them. Ethan laughed easily. "My junior is exceptionally talented. Making puppets for her is like taking out the trash." The man nodded in approval, then asked curiously, "What about you? What kind of puppet have you prepared for the leadership trials this time?" Ethan smiled humbly. "No matter what I make, it's not likely to compare to my junior's. But this time, my puppet is a bit special. Do you remember Mississippi Luna? She signed a blood pact with me before she died." Before he even finished speaking, Ethan's figure was already fading into the distance. But those words struck me like a thunderclap. "Luna? How is that possible?" My whole body went cold, as if I'd been plunged into an ice cave. I stumbled home in a daze. The Luna puppet was already standing at the door. Sensing my arrival, she looked straight at me, her eyes hollow and lifeless. "Luna," I murmured, "have you already accepted Ethan as your master? Is that it?" She remained silent, standing there like a wooden statue. Of course, she was just a puppet. No matter how I questioned her, I would never get an answer. Thinking back to my past life, when Ethan claimed on stage that Luna was his puppet, no one even questioned it. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I finally understood. Ethan had been secretly spreading this lie to everyone all along. No wonder the crowd glared at me with such anger and contempt. They believed I was nothing more than a thieving, manipulative woman. The humiliation of that moment was more excruciating than being publicly executed. I remember on the day I was executed, many girls from the clan stood outside the execution ground, throwing rotten eggs and vegetables at me. They shrieked through gritted teeth, "Why did you do this? We could have had a chance to become necromancers too. Now because of you, the clan leader has revoked our right to even learn." Those hateful glares were more painful than the knives flaying my bones, as if they were scraping away my very soul, piece by piece. I couldn't help but start sobbing, tears blurring my vision. I stood up, walked over to Luna, and found the small point on the back of her head, the suppression acupoint. My fingers trembled slightly as I slowly pulled out the long needle. Like a wilting flower, Luna's face rapidly shriveled, her skin flaking off like dried leaves. Finally, her body turned into a dry skeleton. I looked at her on the ground and couldn't stop myself from wailing. "I'm sorry, Luna. I didn't do what I promised you, but I will carry your wish with me and change this place." After crying for a long time, I carefully carried Luna's skeleton to the back mountain and buried her in our old secret hideout. It was our safe haven when we were kids, where we hid from scolding adults. After doing all this, I looked up towards the mountain peak, towards the leader's position. I have to get the truth. I have to find out the fate of the women in this clan. I have to change it with my own hands. The high-ranking necromancers would never dare venture into the mountains, which teemed with countless live, ferocious beasts. I would capture them and forge them into my strongest puppets. After wandering through the forest for a long time, I finally encountered a giant bear. The bear was twice my size. I used every trick I knew, and just as he had beaten me half to death, I finally completed the pact. This was the first step in creating a puppet. I dragged the enormous bear carcass into a hidden cave. The mountain wind howled, and the low growls of beasts echoed outside, as if they were ready to tear me to shreds at any moment. But fate, it seemed, was on my side. Not a single one of those fierce beasts set foot in the cave. I focused all my strength, using every bit of knowledge I had, and finally forged the giant bear into a puppet. To avoid any mishaps, I remained hidden in the mountains, only coming down the day before the leadership trials. By now, the village was bustling with noise. Necromancers, with their masked puppets in tow, were showing off in the marketplace. When I appeared with the giant bear puppet, everyone was stunned. Well, Ava, this puppet is certainly big enough. What did you use to make it? One punch from that thing, and my little puppet would probably be turned into paste. A mix of ridicule and admiration filled the air. I didn't say a word, my eyes scanning the crowd. Finally, I found Ethan in a corner. As soon as I saw him, I drew my knife and lunged straight for him. Just as I lunged at Ethan, the behemoth by my side suddenly moved. The puppet I had painstakingly created moved before I did, firmly shielding Ethan behind it. I froze on the spot. The next second, a massive bear paw swung violently towards me. I was thrown hard to the ground, feeling like my ribs had been shattered. Pain surged through my entire body. I lay there, staring blankly at the puppet that was now glaring at me, poised to attack. I was completely baffled. The commotion had drawn the attention of everyone in the square. All eyes were on me and the puppet. A flash of shock crossed Ethan's face, but he quickly composed himself. He said coldly, "I've told you before. Puppets choose their own masters. It doesn't matter how powerful a puppet you create. It's useless." Before his taunt had even faded, I shot up from the ground, and with a flash of my knife, the giant bear puppet collapsed. I sheathed my knife and said calmly, "My apologies." The puppet lost control. "Sorry for the disturbance." Faced with the puppet's death, the crowd marveled at my courage, that I could command such a massive beast. With the puppet's true form revealed, everyone gathered around to look at the giant bear's corpse, muttering in amazement. I cupped my hands in a gesture of respect and said lightly, "A beast may be strong, but it's uncontrollable. I wouldn't recommend anyone else try this." Standing to the side, Ethan's face was ashen, his eyes cold and dark, as if he'd been backed into a corner. And just then my master appeared. He stood beside the giant bear's corpse, frowning as he asked, "Ava, do you have any other puppets?" I shook my head. My master was silent for a moment, his tone laced with concern. "The leadership trials are tomorrow. How about I help you make another puppet tonight?" Looking at his kind face, my heart suddenly ached. If my master hadn't taken me in, taught me his skills, I would have ended up like the other girls in the clan, either sold into slavery or married off to some old man. Yet this person before me, who had once given me everything, now sent a bone-chilling cold through me. "It's too late. Master," he sighed, my voice low. "I'm not going to participate in the leadership trials." As soon as I said it, Ethan's expression changed dramatically. "What? You're not participating?" He wanted to say more, but a single look from my master silenced him. My master's brow furrowed, his face full of confusion. "Ava, didn't you want to participate in the trials more than anyone? Don't you want to change the fate of the women in our clan? This is the opportunity you've dreamed of. How can you just give up?" I shook my head and said flatly, "Ethan, I'm just heartbroken over these puppets. The puppet of Luna was a failure, and the one I just made went rogue. I think everyone was right. Girls aren't suited for necromancy. It's better to just get married and have children." I decided to give up. No matter how my master and Ethan tried to persuade me, my answer remained the same. I wouldn't make any more puppets, and I no longer desired the position of successor. Passers-by who heard the news were all filled with astonishment. When I created my first puppet, I became famous overnight. The Liu family had produced a prodigiously talented female necromancer. This news had spread like wildfire throughout the entire necromancy world. My control techniques were masterful, and my puppets were unparalleled. Everyone lamented my withdrawal. The same people who once looked down on me were now, one by one, urging me to persevere, saying the title of successor was very likely to fall to me. I looked at the motionless puppet on the ground, my lips pressed tightly together, my eyes cold and distant. The crowd buzzed with discussion, thinking I had gone mad to choose to withdraw at such a critical moment. But only I knew in my heart, even if I made another puppet, how would the outcome be any different? No matter how hard I tried, in the end, these puppets would turn and recognize Ethan as their master. Why was this happening? Why was I, Ava Lou, destined to fail as a necromancer? This question was like a poison thorn lodged in my heart, and I still couldn't find the answer. In contrast, Ethan, from the moment I said I was withdrawing, had his anxiety written all over his face. He paced back and forth, scurrying around like a startled rabbit. Watching him jump around in panic, a strange sense of satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Everyone said that my master and Ethan genuinely had my best interests at heart. Now that I was giving up, I was letting them both down the most. Especially Ethan. My master thought of me first in all matters, and taught me all his techniques without reservation. But I just smiled and said nothing. They didn't know. It was all just an elaborate play, with only one goal: for me to clear the path for Ethan in the leadership trials. And now that I was withdrawing, Ethan's skills were average at best. Without the powerful puppets I created to help him, he probably wouldn't even have the qualifications to get on stage. Of course he was anxious. Seeing my mind was made up, my master and Ethan said no more, and left in a hurry. I picked up the puppet from the ground, dragged it to the back mountain to dispose of it, and let the heap of remains, which once symbolized glory, rot in the cold, damp valley. After dealing with everything, I went down the mountain alone. On the way, I met a crying little girl. Looking closer, it was Zoe from the south end of the village. She was sobbing, her eyes red. I asked her what happened. She choked out, between sobs, that her older sister Mia was missing. I asked her when Mia had disappeared. Zoe explained in broken sentences. Mia usually came home at noon to cook for her, but today she had waited for 2 hours, and there was no sign of her. After asking around, the villagers said they saw Mia go up the mountain, but there was only one path up the mountain. If she had really gone up, she should have run into me. I told Zoe her sister wasn't on the mountain, and advised her to go home and wait. It was getting dark, and it was dangerous outside. A little girl like Zoe was not safe on her own. She hesitated, wanting to search with me, but also afraid her sister would come home and not find her. After a struggle, Zoe finally nodded. I took some dried rations from my bag and handed them to her. "You haven't eaten, have you? Have some of this for now." Zoe thanked me through her tears, and left, looking back every 3 steps with an uneasy expression. The next day, the sound of ceremonial cannons announced the official start of the leadership trials. When I arrived at the square, I saw Ethan's puppet on the stage, wreaking havoc. When the people around me saw me arrive, they parted to make a path. Someone smiled and praised Ava. "Your senior apprentice was really holding back, huh? He was the first one on stage and defeated all his opponent's puppets. Do you know what he made his puppet out of? It's incredibly strong." I looked up at the fighting ring, a cold glint in my eye. A necromancer can change the appearance of their puppet, even making it look extremely cute or terrifying. However, there is one thing that cannot be hidden in a puppet made from a living person or a corpse: its body shape. Ethan's puppet was gaunt and skeletal, and not very tall. It looked exactly like Mia, who had gone missing yesterday. And my master happened to live in the east end of the village, just a stone's throw away from the family that employed Mia. At that thought, my heart clenched tight. One by one, the puppets on the stage fell. Ethan's puppet stood tall, firmly holding the upper hand. A smile spread across Ethan's face, growing wider and wider, until it almost reached his ears. The clan leader called out 3 times for challengers, and no one came forward. Ethan's smile grew even more triumphant. He had this in the bag, as if the position of successor was already within his grasp. "Since there are no more challengers, I declare." "Wait. I challenge you." I raised my hand, my voice like an icicle piercing the roar of the square. Everyone's gaze snapped towards me. Ethan was stunned. He stammered, "Junior sister, didn't you say you were withdrawing?" I gave a cold smile. I never mentioned withdrawing to the clan leader. The crowd looked towards the clan leader, who could only nod awkwardly. It's true. Ava never mentioned withdrawing to me, nor did she submit any application. So she is still eligible to challenge. Ethan's face instantly turned deathly pale. But he quickly raised his voice. "You don't even have a puppet now. On what grounds do you challenge me?" Hearing this, I unhurriedly snapped my fingers. From the dark crowd, a puppet slowly emerged. To call it a puppet was generous. It looked more like a half-finished project. A cobbled-together skeleton, wrapped in torn cloth, with threads still hanging from its face. It looked like an abandoned doll. Seeing it, Ethan burst out laughing. "Junior sister, this is certainly interesting. You dare to bring out such a piece of junk to embarrass yourself? Today, your senior will help you test this new puppet." However, the smile quickly froze on his face. The half-finished puppet, though shabby, lunged forward on the stage and brutally overpowered Ethan's puppet. In a matter of moments, Ethan's puppet could no longer get up. The crowd below erupted, all praising me for another breakthrough in my skills. Just as the clan leader was about to declare me the winner, Ethan suddenly shouted, "Wait! Junior sister, your puppet was clearly made by me. How can you win? By using my puppet in the competition?" With a whistle, my puppet began to move slowly, walking step by step towards him. It knelt at his feet, then stood up again, and faced me in a defensive stance. The necromancers below all gasped. They could all see this was a puppet acknowledging its master. In an instant, the looks of surprise turned to anger. Accusations began to fly from all directions. "You little cheat. I thought you were so skilled. Turns out you're just relying on a man." I knew it. How could a woman possibly be a necromancer? It was all stolen. Angry curses erupted one after another. It was as if they had found an outlet for their frustration, mocking me relentlessly, as if it made them superior. As the situation spiraled out of control, I remained calm, my gaze fixed firmly on Ethan. I said coolly, "Senior, you say this puppet is yours. Do you have any proof?" Ethan was smug, as if he had it all figured out. "I've said it before, puppets choose their masters. Although this is just a half-finished one I discarded, it was nourished with my own heart's blood. Junior sister, if you wanted a powerful puppet, I could have helped you any time. But this time, I don't want to play along with your act anymore." His words seemed to trample all my achievements underfoot, attributing them to his charity. I narrowed my eyes and continued, "Since you say it was nourished with your heart's blood, why don't you let everyone see your chest? If you really took your heart's blood, there should be scars on your chest, right?" As soon as I said this, the surroundings fell silent. Taking heart's blood was an extremely draining act. Necromancers generally wouldn't use it lightly. After all, it meant using your own life to sustain a puppet. Everyone held their breath, their eyes locked on Ethan. I grew up with Ethan. I knew his weaknesses better than anyone. Ethan was terrified of pain. Even a tiny scratch would make him scream. How could someone so afraid of pain bear to take his own heart's blood? Ethan's face darkened like a stormy sky. After a few seconds of silence, he clutched his collar, his eyes darting around. Finally, he spoke. "With so many people watching me, it's embarrassing." Hearing this, I let out a cold laugh. Then, without hesitation, I unfastened my collar, revealing my own chest. It was a crisscrossing mess of scars, new on top of old, like some kind of horrifying pattern. Every single mark was deeply embedded in my flesh. People gasped in unison. "Leo," the young lady showed hers. "What's a big man like you got to be embarrassed about? You're just guilty, aren't you?" Someone from the crowd challenged. "If he won't show us, he's definitely hiding something. We're all in this line of work. What kind of sorcery haven't we seen? There are hundreds of spells in this world. There's no guarantee there isn't one that can make a puppet recognize another master." Faced with the doubt, Ethan's face turned pale, his hands gripping his clothes tightly. unwilling to let go. Just then, the master suddenly stepped forward, walking steadily onto the stage. His voice deep and powerful. Everyone, quiet down. The entire place fell silent in an instant. The master's authority was unshakable. Since it has come to this, I don't want to hide it from everyone anymore. All this time, everyone thought my older disciple was dull, and my younger disciple was brilliant. But that's not the truth. I have been asking my older disciple to hide his true abilities, and to lend his puppets to his junior for her use. Today is a critical moment for Leo, and as his master, I can no longer do him this injustice. As soon as the master spoke, the tide instantly turned. The necromancers below all turned their questioning gazes on me. Ethan also straightened his back, finally regaining his confidence. He pointed at me and said, "Junior sister, stop acting. The puppet acknowledging its master is the best proof. There's no sorcery in this world that can make a puppet recognize someone else as its master." I let out a soft laugh. "Are you saying that whoever the puppet acknowledges as its master is the one who owns the puppet?" Ethan nodded, a hint of pride in his tone. "All right then. You better watch closely and see whose puppet this really is." I raised my hand and made a simple gesture, muttering an incantation. A moment later, the puppet that was supposed to be protecting Ethan began to walk towards me like a zombie, finally kneeling before me. Ethan panicked. He began to rapidly chant incantations, trying to summon his puppet back. But no matter how he shouted, the puppet remained motionless. He was furious, his voice hoarse, his expression shifting from anger to terror. Then he stared at me, his eyes wide. "Ava, what dark magic did you use?" I put on an innocent expression and said slowly, "What dark magic? Senior, didn't you just say that there's no sorcery in this world that can make a puppet recognize another master? Others don't have it, but you definitely do." Ethan was so flustered he had lost all composure, blurting out whatever he could to try and turn the situation around. "You all might not know this, but Ava is a very sinister person. The reason her puppets are so powerful is because she makes them from living people." He clearly thought this statement would incite the crowd's anger. However, the people below just looked at him coldly, as if watching a joke. "Leo, what nonsense are you spouting? Didn't you just say that Ava doesn't even know how to make puppets? That you made them all for her?" "Yeah, we all saw it. Ava even destroyed her own puppets by hand. They were nothing but some old cloth and bones." Faced with the barrage of questions, Ethan was speechless, stammering, unable to say anything coherent. At this point, I slowly walked forward, staring at him coldly, my voice laced with a chill. "Senior, I have never used living people to make puppets. You, on the other hand, I'm afraid the puppet you're competing with this time was made from a living person, wasn't it?" The crowd erupted in an uproar. I continued, "Mia went missing yesterday. Someone saw her enter your courtyard at night. Are you telling me this isn't Mia?" Ethan's face instantly went white, as if I had hit a nerve. He roared, "You're lying. This puppet wasn't made from a living person. Mia came to my yard just to deliver something." I narrowed my eyes, my smile growing colder. "I never said anyone saw Mia enter your yard. In fact, no one saw where Mia went after noon." Ethan's face grew even paler. The gazes from all around like daggers pierced him, leaving him nowhere to hide. He shook his head, panicked and disoriented. No, this puppet isn't Mia." "Then let's let everyone see this puppet's true form." At my repeated incitement, the crowd of onlookers gradually grew restless, all clamoring to see the puppet's true form. Ethan's face turned livid with anger. He shouted sternly, "A puppet only reveals its true form upon death. You're trying to kill my puppet. Ava, isn't it enough that you stole my puppet? Now you're trying to frame me too? What are you really after?" The master spoke coldly from the side. "Colleagues, this little girl is a master manipulator. Don't let her use you as her pawns. Do you really think the two of us grown men are no match for a little girl?" The crowd hesitated for a moment, unsure who to believe. The situation was a confusing mix of truth and lies. However, I just let out 2 soft laughs. Then I'll let everyone see if the puppet before you is Mia or not. As soon as my words fell, the Mia puppet, which had been standing motionless behind Ethan, began to move slowly, as if being pulled by some invisible force. She walked towards me, step by step, her gait heavy, like a summoned corpse returning to its master. The air instantly froze. The entire square was dead silent. Seeing this, Ethan screamed, "Where are you going? Come back. You get back here." But Mia completely ignored his shouts, kneeling straight down in front of me, as if surrendering to a new master. Ethan's face was as white as a sheet, his hands trembling. "How is this possible? How can you control my puppet?" "This is my puppet." I revealed a cold smile. "Are you sure it's only your puppet?" Just as my words fell, a commotion erupted all around. Every puppet belonging to every person present, whether hidden in a box, standing behind them, or currently guarding its master, began to move in unison, as if summoned by some mysterious power. Without exception, they all walked towards me, and finally knelt before me, bowing their heads in submission. The crowd stared, wide-eyed, watching this scene in disbelief. Someone cried out in shock, "Puppet control. That's the ultimate forbidden art, lost for 1,000 years. She actually knows puppet control." Ethan was terrified, his voice now sharp and hoarse. "Impossible. How could a woman like you possibly learn that?" "Why is it impossible?" I asked softly, my tone icy and sharp. "Yesterday, while looking for Mia, the trail went cold at the master's doorstep. I grew suspicious, and quietly went to check his roof. And sure enough, I saw Mia, already turned into a puppet. My heart felt like it was being sliced. I snuck into the master's secret chamber, and discovered the legendary scroll of puppet control. So that's it. All my previous puppets were affected by this spell, which is why they acknowledged you as their master. Too bad for you, Ethan. You're so mediocre you can only control one. But I mastered it after reading it just once." With the truth revealed, the crowd began to murmur amongst themselves. But Ethan refused to back down, craning his neck and shouting, "So what if I wanted to steal your puppets? A woman like you should be at home waiting to get married and have kids, not running around trying to be a necromancer. What do you women know about anything?" His voice was sharp and grating. I nonchalantly cleaned my ear, my smile growing colder. "You look down on me, yet you had your father take me in as his apprentice, just to steal my talent." At this, the master's face showed his terror. He couldn't help but cry out, "How did you know about my relationship with Leo?" "That's not important anymore," I replied coldly, my fingers gently reaching for the back of Mia's head. I found the critical acupoint. With a sharp pull, a silver needle came out. Mia's body immediately began to convulse violently. A few seconds later, the puppet's skin began to crack, revealing Mia's pale face. "Sister." It was Zoe, pushing through the crowd, crying out as she ran forward. Mia raised her head slightly, her eyes vacant, but she reached out a hand to gently stroke Zoe's face. "Zoe, live a good life." As she spoke the words, blood began to trickle from Mia's eyes, nose, and mouth. She stopped breathing completely. For a puppet made from a living person, once the puppet dies, the person dies with it. Zoe's cries were heart-wrenching, as if shaking the heavens and the earth. And the surrounding crowd was already filled with righteous fury. Their angry gazes fell squarely on the master and Ethan. The master and Ethan were terrified, backing away continuously. The necromancers swarmed forward, seized them, and dragged them onto the stage. Knives were passed up, one after another, ready to strip their flesh down to the bone. I was the one who personally stabbed their hearts in the end. In that moment, the master suddenly began to tremble and spoke, "Ava, I was wrong, I shouldn't have enabled. Your senior, he forced me to do everything. Let your master go, please." The master's voice was filled with despair and pleading. Without hesitation, without even blinking, I plunged the knife deep into his heart. The tip of the blade pierced his muscle, and blood seeped out, the warm liquid flowing over my hand. I said flatly, "So, I'll give you a quick death." Consider it repayment for the kindness of taking me in. The master's eyes bulged, his pupils reflecting my indifferent face. He opened his mouth, as if wanting to say something more, but blood choked his throat, and his voice turned into a hoarse gurgle. Life drained from his body bit by bit, until finally there was only silence. I turned my head to look at Ethan beside me. At this point, he was like a worn-out scarecrow, shaking like a leaf in the wind. Ava, save me. I was always so good to you. His voice trembled, his cowardice and fear laid bare. I chuckled, a cold light in my eyes. Slowly, I began to slice at Ethan's heart, cut by cut. His blood splattered. His agonizing screams echoed in the air. But I deliberately left him with a sliver of life, not letting him die so easily. You look down on women, don't you? You think women are useless? I leaned down, whispering in his ear. Today I'll let you see how a truly terrifying woman tortures someone. Ethan's screams grew more shrill in my ears, as if his soul were being torn apart piece by piece. His once arrogant expression had long since twisted into agony, and by now many angry women had surrounded us, all of them here for Mia. When there was only one last cut to be made, I stopped. I handed the blood-stained knife to Zoe. Her eyes glittered with the fire of vengeance. Without a moment's hesitation, her hand rose and fell, plunging the knife deep into Ethan's chest. Ethan's eyes closed. His life ended at Zoe's hand, just as he had inflicted pain on others. After it was all over, I became the new successor of the Liu family, just as I had wished. Under my leadership, girls could also become necromancers, and they could also be the heads of their households. From then on, countless more outstanding female clan leaders emerged. The end.